on the music. Amateur hour. Okay, microphone light is on, tweet is sent out, canvas is ready, although it's on the wrong monitor. Canvas is ready. Welcome replay viewers to the stream, and soon enough I'll begin saying welcome to live viewers. But for now I'm propping up my tablet. Stylus is ready, and pretty much the idea of this map, the inspiration is I've been playing a little bit of the new Total War game, Three Kingdoms, set in China, and on the campaign map there's a bunch of little, just about like a speckling of little Easter eggs and decorations and things you can look at, and one such thing I came across was, and I guess this is pretty common in the game, though I haven't conquered much territory yet, a mountain covered in little temples and such. And I've been to such a place too when I visited Japan. So what I wanted to do is draw a town map, a settlement map today, depicting one such kind of temple complex on the top of a mountain, or like a number of mountains, or like a temple town kind of thing, like a self-sufficient temple kind of deal. So that's kind of the inspiration for today, and we're going to figure out the layout and the like how we want to present it, pretty much, because I haven't decided yet if we're going to go with like a strictly top-down view or the side-on view. And I think since we're drawing a mountain and something with a lot of elevation, this is an opportune time to go for the side-on view. So I think that's what we're going to do. Let me scroll over here. I see we got one viewer. Welcome, viewer number one. Right now we're staring at a blank canvas, talking and thinking. So I got two layers here. I got my line art layer in blue, and I got my purple, my Twitch themed purple kind of shapes layer, I called it, because we're basically just going to use it to figure out like a mountain shape, and later on like our roads and stuff. So I think we don't want to depict the entire mountain. What we want to do is depict just the peak. So like, this is our mountain, but we'll zoom right in and just have peak here. What is this audio? It's like my house is suddenly being flooded. So yeah, I'm back after a little break. I always take a little breather at the start of the month, usually because the end of my month is super busy. So this is the start of the month for me. What day are we on? The 3rd? No, the 4th today. Okay. So we're on the 4th, and I'm going to be busy with other things tomorrow, so I'm going to design the map today, take tomorrow off. The next day I'll draw it, and the day after that I'll color it, unless any other plans pop up. In fact, I think I have other plans, but in any case, this is kind of chapter 1 to this map. So let's just line this guy in, because it's pretty malleable, the shape of our mountain, but this will be it. And then we might have other mountains in the background, or more likely like a sea of clouds kind of deal going on. I really like that idea, actually. Let's go with the sea of clouds. Move this up. I'm imagining some kind of tall structure at the top, so let's leave enough space for that. Some kind of like a pagoda or something up here. But that's kind of the job of the shapes layer, so let's switch over here. Get like a building-sized brush, I guess. Now, annoyingly, seemingly at random, my stylus just switches on and off the angle sense, I guess. Or I guess it's the tablet doing the switching on and off. But in any case, I can't rotate this brush anymore, which is super frustrating. Yeah, all of them are turned off. Annoying, but we shall move on. So this is going to be... I think we're going to kind of base it in Japan. It's going to be some Japanese architecture kind of monastery. Because that's what I'm familiar with, that's what we're going with. Oh, hey, Garumu. Yeah, we're going with a side view just because I think it'll lend itself better to the mountain. It's we'll do a strictly top-down battle map, but that's better for like flat terrain. If we're going to play with elevation, we can get more use out of a side view. Before I block in buildings, I think I might figure out the road that climbs up this mountain. I'm thinking like let's just block something in and see if it's interesting. And then like a plateau up here. And then along the way there could be little branching streets, like off here. This might be kind of a flat area. Some buildings lined up along here. This is going to be rather challenging, I think. So it's a good thing we're starting with a draft. I think these will be two kind of building bases. We might go for like quite a stylistic view, where it's quite a shifted perspective. All the buildings will kind of be face on rather than isometric. We might even try our hand at like a Japanese painting style to really get thematic with it. Well, we'll decide that later. Right now we're just figuring out the actual layout design, I guess. It's like a row of buildings here, maybe even a row all the way up this horizontal area, though I imagine this is kind of stairs. You can kind of define our stairs like this. And at the top, we might have at the top is like a big old torii gate. Like a really dramatic, distinctly Japanese silhouette up here. I think that'll be pretty sweet. Then maybe off to the left we can have our pagoda. And then it depends, because there's supposed to be something behind the torii gate, but at the same time I want to have that dramatic torii gate silhouette on the mountainside. So it's a bit of a conundrum. I think I want a bigger brush because I want to get more interesting with this mountain shape. Maybe like a drop here, some kind of flat land here where we can plop some buildings. And then over here, maybe this side can be like a sharper drop. Like I quite like the silhouette of that mountain. This is what we're doing on this stage of the process, is we are just figuring out some interesting shapes to work with. Getting the overall composition right. Because we can draw all sorts of fun little buildings, but if the composition's wrong, then the end product is going to be a mess. It's going to be kind of a waste of time. So this may be the most important step, even if it doesn't look like much. I'm being hypnotized by this music. Next, please. Multiple levels, vertical terrain. Yeah, that's the idea. Garumu. Sorry, I'm a bit behind on Twitch chat. And look at that. I've tabbed out and back into Photoshop, and now my brush is rotating again. Odd. Maybe it's some kind of mismatch between my monitors. Maybe this can kind of be like a carved edge to the mountain. like this, and then we can have a nice effect with the buildings on this edge where it kind of wraps around this edge. And this kind of cliff be kind of like here. And this cliff will kind of come around here. Just defining some levels in our mountain. Then I guess here it kind of starts leveling out. Getting more gentle. Probably a cliff around this edge here. I think we need to just move this whole structure down a bit. Maybe like this. So I guess this Torii gate will kind of be at the... It's a really tall Torii gate, isn't it? They've got quite a specific proportion to them, which I don't know precisely, but I can kind of feel it out. But I want it to be... I always do that. I want it to be down here, kind of where the stairs terminate. And I want to mix in some like nature, so we'll have some trees all the way up here. I haven't kind of decided in my head how tall the mountain is, if it makes sense for trees to be growing up here. I like that idea, Guramu. Sorry, Garamu. I'll get your name right one of these days. Like a little side route. So this will be the main route. The main road kind of follows this zigzag. And then we're going to have Garumu's idea of a kind of secondary minor road that might run down some other way. Maybe like a little switchback trail here. I guess let me draw a couple more buildings so that I can figure out the scale. This Torii gate's a pretty good indicator of scale, but I mean the size of those things can vary greatly. So you can get titanic Torii gates, or you can get little ones that you almost have to duck under. So I guess it's not a very good indicator of scale, but I think like our general one-story building will be kind of this size. So like a little footpath will be about the scale of this brush thickness. Maybe it'll come kind of down this slope. I mean, we can afford more than one little trail. So I feel like one comes down here, and then we can have a little spattering of buildings here. And there'll be other trails unmapped on the other side of the mountain. Probably another one coming down here, like a little shortcut. Probably another one going up here, maybe between the houses. So these are kind of the footpaths for foot traffic who can take very vertical steps, but if you're trying to get a cart or a wagon up, then you're going to have to take this main road, which might not even have steps in it. I mean, it's not an incredibly steep mountain at this point. I mean, I kind of want to narrow the whole thing so that it is steeper and more dramatic, I guess, more vertical. Before it kind of resembled a hill. So I think we'll do that. Let's play with it a bit like this. Just maintain our Torii gate size. I guess we could keep that Torii gate silhouette if we're smart about the shape of whatever's behind it, the temple. So what I've got going on here, basically I have the draft layer, and then the shapes layer is kind of the draft layer of the draft layer. So multi-layered drafting. Kind of thinking, not drawing any three-dimensional shapes, just kind of getting silhouettes of our eventual buildings in. Something like this. So then we've still got a big old... Our Torii gate is still very distinct, right? There's probably a wall around this area since it's a temple. I mean, it's definitely a wall, actually. And there's not always walls around temples. That's kind of the funny thing about temples, is you're supposed to go through the Torii gate to kind of respectfully enter the secret ground, but they're also very easy to walk around because there's usually no distinct wall around the complex unless it's like a safety wall. But that's not always the case, I guess. So what I mean is we can afford to have a wall or not have a wall, but I guess if it's the top of a mountain, makes sense to have a wall. Or we can have like that castle base where it kind of swoops up into the wall like that. Maybe that's the way to go. But I don't think this view is so side on, so we're going to have a little bit of a... Kind of talking nonsense right now, aren't I? Let me figure out what I'm trying to say first, and then I'll open my mouth then. So this is kind of our floor. This is kind of the top area. Also need, let me find some reference images. Can't remember the name specifically, but there's a big old temple in Kyoto. I'm trying to get a sense for like the verticality of these buildings. So I think if we want some verticality at the top here, we should mix in a pagoda. Because generally temple buildings are, they can get quite tall, can't they? But, oh, what about that one in Nara? Yeah, that's a pretty grand structure. Let's kind of emulate that. So I guess it's pretty typical of temples to be symmetrical. So and then very wide kind of roof edge. And then like another layer up here. Little swoop at the edges. Some dramatic flare and like a secondary one too. I forgot all the terminology, but at one point I kind of knew what these were called. And then the top we have this bit with, we have the bit with the fish. If anyone is familiar with Japanese architecture is in chat, maybe you can fill in. The bit with the fish is up here. There's like a little second floor visible there. Not usually a second floor, but just like an extension to the roof, I guess. That's a bit better. Yeah, and we still get that dramatic silhouette. In fact, what I might do is like cloud this top bit with like a vaporous fog, so we get kind of this silhouette poking through of the temple, but we still have that definite shape of the Torii Gate. Quite like that idea. You know, I just realized I might be confusing. I think there's two different kinds of temples in Japan, right? There's Buddhist and Shinto ones, and they each have different layouts and kind of architectural motifs. So okay, this one I'm looking at in Nara is a Buddhist temple. So the question is, do Buddhist temples have Torii gates? Because I know from memory this one in Nara has a much more grand kind of gate, but it doesn't resemble a Torii gate at all. So let me do some Googling. What is the purpose of a Torii gate? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Shinto. Yeah. Shinto shrine. So I have to decide, are we doing a Shinto or a Buddhist style shrine here? Hey Stargamer, Fire Temple is available to patrons right now. You can find the link in the description below the stream in the panels, and it will be freely available in a week or two. I can't remember the exact release date, but it's kind of like a pre-release for patrons right now, just so I can stagger my public releases, because it's better that way for getting Google to like you. So that's why I've delayed those releases. And it also doubles as like a pre-release kind of benefit for the patrons. So I think I want the Torii Gate. So let's look up Shinto temple. Pretty sure it's just shrines for the Shinto religion. Is that right? Because these aren't generally enormous like the Buddhist ones. At least I can't really see any with the distinct kind of two-story look of this one down here. We can do, I see a couple here that are exceptionally kind of tall and not so wide. So maybe we can either go wide or tall. This is the one I was kind of thinking about, the one in Nikko. Yeah, I guess it is quite a different style to the Buddhist ones. So I'm glad I had this kind of thought process. This one in Tokyo, what's it called? Sensoji? That's Shinto? Sensoji. Because that one does have a... No, it doesn't have a torii gate. It has the large style gate with the two kind of warrior spirit statues in it, which is very different styles. I think we have to choose here, guys. Do we want big temple structure, or do we want torii gate with that oh so nice silhouette but a smaller structure? Or I guess the third option is to have a fantasy religion where those two elements are mixed, but I feel like that's maybe not... Way to go. Like, I feel like anyone who's running this kind of game would want a little bit of would appreciate the historical accuracy. Okay, this one's in Kyoto, I think. Okay, I'm wary to erase this since I quite like the silhouette, but I'm gonna erase it. It's done. So, okay. Well, now that I look at the bare mountaintop, I've kind of got some ideas as to what we can do. We can put that smaller Shinto structure over here on the left, and that will... They're kind of... If they're large, they're quite broad. Not sure what those side wings of the building are for. Maybe housing for the personnel. So we can let's replicate this Nico one. Kind of long, and then there's a central building with this swoopy roof style. And then this triangle is important to the structure, so we want to keep some space between the torii gate and the triangle here. Yeah, this could work. And then we have the other side over here. I quite like this silhouette we have. This might even be a good map to forego drawing with pen and paper and just block it in with colors. I've been thinking about doing a map in that style since we're placing it in the clouds, and that gives us so much opportunity for like voluminous cloud bodies and some interesting lighting that would kind of be held back by throwing lines all over this thing. I'll give it some thought as we go. But for now, quite happy with this design. Should put a little wall over here. There's other elements to a shrine, such as the little place where you wash your hands. Sometimes there's a bell, though I think pretty sure the bell is a Buddhist thing, right? I guess they could both have bells. I mean like the big bells with their own structure encasing them. Though now that I think about it, the one in Nikko, did that have a bell? Gosh, I should have done some research before this, and then I could have sounded exceptionally well educated. But anyway, we might just have a vague secondary structure, or better yet, we can put our secondary structures down here, and then like secondary gates as well, like here. So it's one of those multi-tiered kind of temple structures, because it's not unusual to have more than one torii gate. The Inari shrine in Kyoto is famous for having over 100. So So we can definitely get away with multiple tiers. So these roofs are quite distinct. They got this kind of peak to them, which tapers off very sharply at the edge. So that would be a roof. And then this is kind of like an outdoor structure, I suppose. You know, we could even, I'll consider setting this map at nighttime. Have like a bunch of lanterns and stuff on the road, the side of the road. That could be awesome. Definitely want the biggest Torii at the top, so let's control the scale of this one. Okay, it's all right. Let's go back to this drafting layer. Kind of get rid of these distracting elements and go back to the portions of the canvas we're unsure about. I also hit save every now and then and stretch my neck a bit. So all you 3 viewers in chat, do let me know if you have any ideas, anything you'd like to see added to this temple. As I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. I think maybe here we could have another gate just here. Very vague shapes so far. I think it's might be a little strange to have 2 roads up into complex. Maybe I'm breaking a rule there, but not too concerned. So this here is quite a small structure in my mind. Like in present day, it might be the souvenir shop, but I guess in kind of the back in the day, it would have been like housing or storage or any sort of thing. But I think we're going to downsize it and make it one of those hand washing stations, which most likely have a name, though I couldn't tell you what it is. It's about that scale. So you got to wash your hands before you go up the stairs. That's the idea. Probably another building in here in kind of the holy ground, sacred ground area for like or other stuff. Hey, Mossen. Yeah, like the background of the map. I haven't thought about that much. I thought about the literal background of the map, like out here. I'm thinking like rolling clouds. Maybe like a scattering of other mountaintops poking out the top. So it's not like a lone mountain atop the clouds. But as for the background, yeah, it could be like a secret order of monks living in isolation. I quite like that idea. You know, above the clouds, somewhere that's hard to find. I guess maybe it's a magical cloud that never goes away, like a Laputa situation. But let's think about that as we go. Open to suggestions, of course. Let's block in some more structures. So I think we'll have some rather horizontal buildings out here and then put them on stilts. That might be a fun effect. Not sure how well stilts fare on a mountainside. If stilts don't work out, we can replace them with like a rocky foundation. Here, let's do a mix of a wide building, and then behind it we can sneak in a tall building. Maybe our pagoda is on this side. In fact, one of these sides, perhaps this side would be better composition wise. It's a very vague shape for now, but that's where we can put our pagoda, kind of behind this building, or we can just have the building just poking out the side here, so we have the full face of the pagoda. Yeah, cool ideas, Garumu. I've kind of been imagining this map as just a settlement map, not really an encounter map. So this is like the map that the DM plops down when the players arrive at a place and they start thinking, do we want to visit the general store? Or visit the inn or the monastery, etc., etc. And then you can kind of move players around. But I suppose some combat elements, or like some defensive elements, like if this is a secret sect of monks, they probably have some defenses. Even if they're not secret, they probably do. So we could think about that as we go. Oh, Inwills. Did I forget to put the link in my tweet? That's silly of me. Let me quickly redo that. I knew one of these days I would forget something. But welcome back to the stream. I've taken my few days off and am getting back into the swing of things. Just as soon as this tweet is done. There's our tweet 2.0. So yeah, I was wondering why we're just sticking around 5 viewers. So we've got 2 layers going. We have our general compositional shapes layer, and then we have, this is our line layer, which we'll use later on for drawing over. So these elements that I want, I should make a list. I want a pagoda. Here we can have our pagoda. I want our actual temple, so we can call this a monastery. That'll go up there. We need a bunch of residential houses, but we can just sort of scatter them in areas that make sense. Like all along this road here, we can put a bunch of maybe even 2-story buildings. Down here, I imagine this is like the largest kind of plateau besides the top. So this will kind of naturally become like the marketplace, if this place has a marketplace. I'm not sure why a monastery would have a marketplace. I imagine the monks would kind of venture down the mountain to the nearest settlement. Big old sakura tree, that's good, yeah. We could even have it be like a significant kind of landmark, so like a big tree that kind of is behind this temple. And then we can get a sweet effect going where there's like a wind, like a breeze, and there's all this kind of this ribbon of petals / leaves. No, they are petals, aren't they? Kind of in here. Okay, there's our first excellent idea from Twitch. Best ideas always come from Twitch. So that's why I try and stream this stage every time. Thanks for that, Mosen. Shortcut path. So Garumu, yeah, I must remember your suggestion of having kind of multiple little paths leading up. Little footpaths, paths suitable, like shortcuts for people on foot, and longer paths for people bringing animals up or carts. And I think this is going to be fun, having the stilts on the buildings. Not so much here, since if we kind of block in the shape of the terrain, I kind of imagine this is like a little flat area. So here's the thing. So let's have like a standout structure, probably down here in like the general area for an inn or some kind of yeah, place for guests or outsiders to stay in. Whereas further up the mountain, this will be where like the monks and the people who live here do their stuff. We could, I like the Sakura idea. We could kind of sneak in a bunch more in between the buildings where they make sense. So we'll have the big mama tree, and then around that kind of have our saplings as well. Let's try and block some more stuff in. It looks like a multi-tiered building rather than two separate ones, so it's probably got a stone base if that's the case. Can't really squeeze 2 floors on a wooden support structure, I don't imagine. Let's get a reference image for our pagoda, since I can't really draw that from memory. Thought I saw one on my Google page. How's the stream looking, by the way? This camera's a little bit too close for comfort. That's better. I quite like, let's mix in one of these iconic bridges somewhere. Maybe we can put like a crack in this mountainside and have it bridged by one of those iconic red bridges, like the one in Nikko, if anyone's familiar. There's quite a different style Torii Gate, that's interesting. So let's add bridge to our list of landmarks that we want. Okay, this one's sort of a pagoda. That's kind of what I want, but also not quite. Let's get an actual pagoda. Yeah, that's better. So just so we get the silhouette spot on. And I'm gonna move it to a bit so that we have some space. Let's put it very precariously on this mountainside where it looks liable to fall off. You know, the next earthquake that strikes. Okay, so we'll start at the top. There's quite a... like these rooftops are much more horizontal than I want to draw by instinct. Then there's like a tall shape up here. And then we have this kind of a gap, kind of a, like, yeah, just the structure running through the entire middle. Let's block that in. And then just a bunch of roofs sticking out, kind of expanding towards the bottom. And then quite a larger than normal shape at the bottom. Larger than normal? A section of the building uninterrupted by a roof. It kind of resembles like a Christmas tree or something. Maybe we should be less dramatic with our widening of the roofs. Maybe there should be like an outer limit. Like there, that looks a bit better. There's some interesting shapes going on in there too. That is an awfully big sakura tree. Maybe it should be a ginkgo tree. Though, I mean, if we're doing classic Japanese monastery, it's got to be a pink tree, right? Hi Destiny Chopsticks, thanks for joining us. Yeah, this Twitch is a very new addition to 2 Minute Tabletop. It's been running for all of pretty much a little longer than a week, so still in our early days, still setting everything up. The UI is pretty clunky. I mean, not the UI, all the Twitch overlays. But I'm trying to make it a regular part of my work schedule, just to kind of do my normal routine, but with Twitch running, so that you guys can tune in if you want. So if you think that sounds like a fun idea, then please hit the follow button and you'll be notified next time we go live. But you've come at a good time, because we're not far into this map. We're just defining all of our shapes and kind of design so that it feels right later. So none of these lines are permanent. We're going to draw over all of them. And in fact, I'm kind of still tossing up the idea of going lineless on this map. Just using big old color blocks, and perhaps we can even emulate like an old Japanese painting style. Let me Google that and see if that's feasible. Oh, I like this black and white, strictly black and white water stuff. Very limited color range. Lots of like volumetric lighting. Like that would lend itself really well. I think I'm going to do it, guys. I think I can pull this off. Like, let me just pull this in. Now, obviously I don't own this image, so there's a little disclaimer. This is not my image. But see, if we look at this image, see how they've done their mountains. There's a scattering of kind of brush strokes in there, but mostly it's like this watercolor fading stuff, which is kind of what I work with anyway, if we just cut out my usual line work. So we have like a very strategically placed line work with this brush pen style. Maybe I could even emulate that, but I think I'd do it digitally better. And then as for color / rendering, just this foggy kind of effect with large blocks, watercolory looking stuff. There's some very distinct brush strokes all in here. I'm not going to get it as good as this one, but I'm going to try my best, and it's going to look good enough, right? And so what I am excited about is the way that these blocks of watercolor suggest like fog between these mountainous shapes. We can do that in here with our buildings, kind of the edges between the buildings and the bodies of stone, and just create a very foggy mountain with maybe just a hint of clouds in the background. Though not many of these reference images that I'm looking at have clouds. It's usually just a very simplistic white background. Like there's a lot of images here which are even simpler than what I just showed you. That's terrifying. That's like one of those Japanese folklore monsters that always looks so terrifying in the paintings. Yeah, we can pull this off. Let's go for it. Thanks, Destiny Chopsticks. I'm glad you like the accent. I like to call it an awkward mix between African and Australian. And I've noticed recently I'm mixing in a little bit of like Japanese American too, which makes for some strangely pronounced words, but I'm glad you're enjoying it. So we're gonna keep going with this blocking in of shapes and design. And then when we get to coloring, we're going to forego completely line art and just spend an extra portion of time on paintings, because we're going to be trying to emulate a style which I haven't really done before. So there's going to be a lot of learning involved. We're going to kind of learn together. But anyway, for now, so what I'm also excited about is that this shape will remain just this vague shape, which gives our Torii gate a very distinct silhouette, which is what I wanted. And then we'll get this archway, and just like the stark shadow, that'll be present. And these background structures will probably just be silhouettes. And might also be an opportunity to practice some kanji, since we can put little names on these structures. So we can put a little block here with like blah 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 kanji. That's just some pretend stuff. And that'll be kind of the pagoda's name. And we have a different one over here for the temple, and a different one here. And if none of your players know Japanese, you can just tell them that that means such and such, and they'll believe you. So you can name these things whatever you want, or you can go with whatever names we come up with. And then this helps us define what structures are kind of key landmarks, such as the inn or the pagoda, blah blah blah. So I'm really excited about this. And then that'll also be our chance to mix in color, since we'll use like a deep red like this. No idea what that says. Probably a name, right? Okay, we're getting up to our usual 8 viewers. So welcome everyone. So we've hit the point where we've decided what's going to make this map unique, and that's going to be the painting style. We're going to challenge ourselves and try and emulate our traditional Japanese look. And if we really like it, perhaps we'll do more, like a little series of Japanese maps, which I would be very happy with, because my personal campaign is set in like a Japanese analog setting. Not quite sure how I want to taper this mountain off. Maybe just a really steep section, or maybe it's going to disappear. I think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to fade away into clouds, kind of like these mountains fade away into fog. How's the music, by the way? Is it audible? Because I just realized I had my slider very low. One of these days I'll get the audio right. In fact, I found out how to use my microphone as a kind of audio leveling device, so maybe I should get to setting that up. But anyway, so we've talked a lot, but let's get to drawing as well. So I do want to mix up the shapes of these houses, not just have them all squat rectangles like this one. I'm thinking we'll have a mixture of 2-story ones here. We'll figure out these gates later, since I just kind of be wasting my time on them now. But yeah, I think we're like in the background here we'll have other little mountain peaks fading off into the distance. Okay, well let's work down from our temple. So we've got the main complex, we've got the big gates, we got the hand washing station. It's not too much more that's important. We could have some lion dogs actually. It's important where those go. I'm feeling like right here. We're just going to hint at their location so that players savvy with Japanese temples are satisfied. It's like I said earlier in the stream, I want to make this kind of historically accurate. I think that's rather important for this map. So we're not going to get too loose with our kind of fantasy. This should definitely be taller. Let me look back at this temple reference images, see if anything stands out as quite like this one. This one that I can't show you has a big wooden platform. We could kind of mix that in. Now the other thing I have to consider is that we're not going to get very detailed with painting styles, so I don't want to add too many elements. Like, it's entirely possible this wooden platform won't be like distinct enough to read as a wooden platform, and it might just be a useless element in that way. But I think that's fine. We could kind of sneak in the doorway here too. Yeah, these are some nice shapes. Happy with that. Very happy with this background tree. I think that helps. Ah, these big old staircases are just wonderful. I wish we had some experts on Japanese culture in the chat who could answer my questions, because I have a lot of questions regarding what the purpose of these secondary buildings are. Like, I want to include them in the map, but I'm not quite sure if it's important that they be behind the Torii Gate or not. But you know, one thing we can mix in, which is another opportunity for color on what's probably going to be a very black and white map, is little lanterns. Lanterns. There's an example of one of those words which over time I've started pronouncing the American way. If I say it's strictly Australian, it's lantern. Let's draw in some lanterns. But whether it's because of my girlfriend or because I know that I'm speaking to a mostly American crowd, I want to pronounce it lantern. Or maybe it's Pokemon's fault, since they have a lantern Pokemon there. And I just did it again. I said it Pokemon. It's Pokemon. Weird. Weird. Okay, so our lanterns, they got like a bulbous head. Little bobble on top, and then they're quite tall. Like that. So, need to scale that down. These elements might be too big. We might just draw them like this instead. It's like a series, maybe 3 over here. But then they could be lanterns slash headstones. Maybe, like, what are the purpose of all these? Not sure. Statues are something we can just sort of scatter about, as are trees. Like that, there's probably the way we'll mix color into this. We've got our labels, which will be a bright red, and then we've got our trees, which will be either red, like I'm considering red now, as an autumn colorscape, or pink. We've got our lion dogs, they're good. We could go with that Inari Shrine look where there's just a billion lanterns and a billion gates leading up. It's probably something we can do. But before I start putting like all these little details in, we need to block in our big details. So let's go back to that bridge idea. I want a bridge on here. So I'm thinking we just run a crack like straight through here, and then we can bridge that with a bridge. There's a big old crack in the mountain here, and then we can bridge that gap with the bridge we want so badly. Well, the bridge I want so badly. This bell, this big freestanding bell building, is that a Shinto thing? Or is that a Buddhist thing? Am I allowed to use that for a Shinto kind of temple complex? Cliffs could evidence ancient carved faces. Ooh. Yeah, man. Like, we could turn all this shape into a cliffside and do all sorts of things with this space. I guess all of this besides the... I'm just kind of... I see an opportunity here for a path. Mix a path in here. So there'll be a big cliff face here, which might be a literal cliff face, as Garamu has suggested. I'll play around with that idea. I'm a bit wary of adding too many interesting things. Now that I think about it, that's kind of a Naruto thing, isn't it? Which isn't a bad thing. That's a very Japanese icon, I guess. Massive flags, banners. Yeah, we could. I'm trying to think. I did a lot of traveling around Japan, and one of my favorite things to do was visit shrines and castles and all sorts of old architecture. And I can't say I ever saw a big banner. They got lots of little flags, like a humongous billowing thing. Yeah, that's got to be either Nepalese or somewhere else. Although it would be a very dramatic flare, and I do like the idea. But we could have little banners kind of leading up alongside the main path. I like that idea. What was I saying before? That I don't want to add in too many distinct eye-grabbing features. Like, it's possible to have too much intrigue on a map and not have anywhere for the eyes to rest. So I think that our big tree, that's going to be like what I do when I design towns and cities for my games, is I pick one thing as kind of like the defining characteristic of the location. Especially because I use lots of Japanese names for my settlements, my players can hardly ever remember them. So usually they think of the town not as the city of Shamisen, but they think of it as the city with that one tower that's famous across the lands. So what I do is I pick one defining element for a settlement, and either that could be a big face, or it might just be this big pink tree, or it might be something else. But I'm kind of thinking the town with the big pink tree is enough. I think I have to shift this whole thing down just a bit. Now that I'm looking at this, why didn't we do this as a portrait-oriented map? Like if it's going to be, especially this kind of orientation is also, I don't know, a more Japanese kind of feel for me, like one of those hanging scroll kind of things. I collected a lot of imagery when I was in Japan, but not a lot of actual study of the terminologies. I kind of wish that I could be more specific as I talk about this. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that I feel like traditional Japanese stuff, maybe it's these screens that I'm thinking of, usually have this kind of orientation. So now if we do go with this, we have to fill this area with something. Maybe it's kind of a blank-ish area where we can sneak our big town name label in. What do you guys think? Twitch chat, what do you think of the orientation? Should we go with portrait or landscape? Landscapes, I tend towards landscape because it's the better orientation when I put these on my website. So all the preview images are in landscape, but I can work around that. Between this and this, I think it's gonna have to be portrait. Like that's got so much more character to it. Don't know what I did then. Control-Shift-T. I'm going to add that to the list of shortcuts not to press because I don't know what it does. Now we can squeeze this even more. We've squeezed it twice already today, but we're going to squeeze it some more. Maybe we'll have just a cloud of pink trees down here. Like maybe this is Mama Tree and all of her little children are planted down here. For reasons. So do let me know if this orientation is offensive to you. Otherwise I'm going to go with it. And welcome Imagination Studio to the chat. I didn't neglect to see your hello. And if we do play around with our cliffside faces, down here could be a place for them. Here we go again with our portrait-oriented map. It's kind of been a running theme lately. I'm just thinking about how this rock faces go as well. Like I quite like the idea of this being one big rock face, and that would be a good place for a carving. Yeah, I like that Karamu. And hopefully none of my players are watching right now, but the kind of end boss for my personal campaign is an old creator god buried in the side of a mountain. So to like have his face right here, and then later on have him emerge and just destroy this place in doing so would be like fun for my personal game. We'll see what we can do. Definitely with this painting style, we could add a very subtle face with the... just by doing some very subtle brush strokes, watercolory brush strokes, right? I'm gonna keep this with us. Let's forge on ahead. So I guess that'd be kind of a nose. Kind of some sleeping eyes, like here. And just kind of a rounded area for the forehead. Then we could just have like a distinctly detailed ear in here, so that passers by are like, what the? That's an ear. No, I'm just kidding about that. But we can get kind of the shape of the sculpt. It's kind of like a... I think we'll just figure this out when we get to stroking and our brushes. Yeah, we'll keep that there for now. We'll think on it. I do like where it is on the piece, kind of compositionally. We could probably sneak in something else here, like a nose. Since we kind of have a forehead shape going here already. This poor sod has a pagoda built on his head. We like expand that. Now I have to also make the decision whether there's any safety railing upon this settlement, or if they just trust people to not fall off. I think we'll go with the second option. No safety railing, just sheer cliffs to the side of all these pathways. Okay, if we hide this, we kind of see where we're lacking detail right now. We need our buildings in here, in this big space, and probably down here too. This here also is a minor path. And this big area down here, like what should be down here? You guys, let me know what you'd like to see down here in this big space. I'm going to figure out the cliff faces first. And then once I've defined the flat land, that's when I'll throw the buildings on. And then if we're going with like rules of composition, we probably want a third face in here. So we have a 1, 2, 3 trio of heads. But after all this practice I had, these rock faces still puzzle me endlessly. I quite like this. Quite like this. Plus, these are going to be more vague with the painterly style we're going with, so it's not too important that I get the faces making sense just yet. This is quite a grand path, quite wide up here. Like I feel like this is the main road. Just block that in very generally. And I guess this here will kind of be the residential zone. And then the rest of the road going up here is probably less seriously enormous. Right? With a little path going up around this loop to visit that structure in the background. Yeah, I'm liking this so far. Okay, so main buildings. What we need is, okay, so like I was saying before, is kind of past this staircase here. This is kind of like where the priests and the shrine maidens and the people who live here live. Below this will be like the taverns and I guess the peasantry also live on the mountain. So here, this is where we're going to put our taverns. It's important in every town to have a tavern. It's just a rule in D&D. What building am I going to shamelessly copy the silhouette of for this one? I know that like feudal Japanese buildings on flat land were generally very flat. But I guess if you're going to build on a mountainside, limited land, it makes sense to have some multi-tiered buildings. But we're not going to find much if I keep Googling for shrines, so let's do something better here. Just gonna search for feudal Japanese house. Of course, like whenever we Google any building on the internet these days, we get a bunch of Minecraft things. I usually do these searches with minus Minecraft, and that'll weed out most of them. Oh, we could copy these Shirakawa Go style ones. I mean, those are farmhouses, and they're also maybe from a different time period. But they are two-story. Not very mountainous. Maybe this style. I rather like this one. I can't really show it to you. But it's got a lot of character to its silhouette and its shapes, which is why I like it. So let's try popping one in here. Now the question is, should we do like a perspective drawing like this, or is that typical at all of this painting style? I suppose there's a lot of perspective in here. Let me go back to my Japanese painting reference images and see if there's any with buildings. These interior paintings, they've got some really funky perspective. I guess like a rather funky perspective is pretty typical. I found one here with a shifted perspective, but it's... yeah, there are some. It's also hard to tell if these are like modern reimaginings. Okay, here's a town map, and I remember seeing a lot of paintings like this in the museums, and they do have a shifted perspective. So we are allowed to do this perspective, which is good. So I'm gonna make this a little longer. And then we have like a secondary roof on top here. And then on the side, maybe there's a little something here. Think about that in a bit. This is just sort of like a landing zone. I should go play some Sekiro and see what they did with their mountainous villages. Or we could have this little secondary roof coming off here. Maybe. Sneak a little building in here with a slightly different twist on it, since they're just following the contours of the cliff face. You can have some twisty, turny buildings. So then I think one more like here, that's the front wall there. So these monks probably live in like a dormitory kind of situation. They don't each have a house. That makes sense to me. A bit pedantic, aren't I? We're also going... It's like a lot of temple on this thing, which makes sense. It's a monastery, so maybe there's more than one big temple, or maybe there's like more than one god being worshipped up here. So they have this one, and this one. Then you can kind of have three main temples, right? Maybe we should have another Torii gate over here. It's a lot of gates, isn't it? Quite like that idea. So, and perhaps they're not completely on friendly terms, these three temples, but they have to make peace because they're all stuck on the same mountain. And I'm sure as a DM you could come up with some fun stuff there. Thinking about where I can put another tree to get another little ribbon of leaves blowing. So we've been streaming for an hour and a half, and I like what we have here. What do you all think is missing, and what do you all think should go down in this lower area? Like, okay, well, first of all, I do want a big block here for the name of the place. So this is where we'll do some fancy kanji business. Blah, blah, blah. Which means we can pretty much get away with having this area blank, which I think we're going to turn it into like a puffy cloud kind of shape here. Which means we just might have more pathway coming down here. Like this, right? And Maybe even a... Okay, so if we have one cliff face, literal face in the cliff over here, one here, and then we can have another one kind of here. Maybe they got different expressions too. This one's not too pleased. I mean, he's going to have the bulk of the town built on his head, so something in there. Will be more subtle when we actually paint them in. Are we doing too much foreshortening here? That's not quite typical of the art style, is it? Maybe it just looks that way because we've gone with a very thick line. Plus, I think we're going to be very scarce with our stairs on this main road, because I'm imagining like someone bringing a donkey or something up here, carrying supplies. This here is probably another bridge, since we have our big cleft in the rock there. Yeah, let's have this bridge kind of disappear into the clouds. Looking with very vague shapes here, aren't we? And then I just need to define where that tavern is, and then we're pretty good to move on to painting, because we can still figure things out while we're painting. Maybe there's a series of bridges leading up here. Like another one here. So we'll have a trio of bridges as well as a trio of faces and a trio of temples. Then we can have a trio of trees as well. So there's another bridge, kind of, sort of. The vague shape of one. And then a third one here. It's not exactly the best composition for three bridges, right one after the other. You can make a big encounter of like taking this place back from mountain bandits or something. Like the place is taken over by bandits and the party has to fight their way up the trio of bridges first, and then like through the streets. That could be fun. So I see an issue here, and it's that we've got too much foreshortening, like too much perspective. It kind of doesn't feel... Then again, I kind of like it too, so maybe we'll stick with it. It's okay to modernize the art style a bit. Because like looking at this thumbnail, it looks pretty awesome, I think. So all these lines, I'm just kind of figuring out the shape of the cliffside. Then they're going to be painted in much more subtly. So we need the roads to be very distinct, and we need the buildings to be very distinct. But the actual mountain itself will be rather like back here. Just shapes kind of suggested by the shading. No serious detail. So it'll be quite easy when we get painting to hide the faces. But I like the trio of faces. Thanks for that idea, Garimu. Good morning, Jack. Welcome back. Still making some good progress. Still a little ways off finishing. Like this area here is rather a large open area, since it kind of lends itself to that. Maybe we can sneak a tree in over here, since we do need tree number 3. Like, maybe tree number 3 will go here. And then each temple can have a tree of their own. I think that's pretty typical of a bunch of people living in isolation, is that it kind of evolves a bunch of petty squabbles. So in my mind, these 3 temples kind of decided back in the day to all build their temples on the one mountain peak. But later on, perhaps after a few generations, you know, as happens when people are isolated together, they get jealous of silly things, or little petty squabbles break out. And one such squabble is probably that one temple had this glorious pink tree and the rest of them didn't. So after much arguing, they decided each temple should have its own tree. And that's how the 3 trees came about. Maybe even how the 3 bridges came about. I think like each one of these bridges probably is dedicated to each temple. So maybe the visitor has to respect each deity on their way up by crossing the bridge. Maybe offering a prayer or something. They're just all ideas, since you don't have to use any of them in your game. Most of my maps don't come with any kind of history attached to them. These are just ideas I come up with on stream. And ones which I may use for my own game, since it's set in Japan after all. So this will be a big cloudy shape. So what we need to do, for heaven's sake, Ross, so they're talking about it for the longest time, is we need to draw this in. I think the inn is pretty much going to dominate most of this plateau. Let's just start drawing and see if I like the shapes that come out. Thinking like quite a wide, broad building like here. We can always just change the location of this staircase. I'm vaguely copying the layout of something I'm looking at on my other monitor. And maybe like a little offshoot building over here. It's not very iconic though, is it? It's kind of a boring shape. We could put a second story on top. Just give me some space in the line art, please. Now we're getting more to a distinct shape, which is what I want. Like, you want an important landmark building to look as such. To kind of grab the eye, to stand out from the general buildings. Like this one. That's just a building. It's not very important. It's got kind of an odd perspective to it now that we've started drawing in three dimensions. And this little area, I'm imagining kind of blocking the path here. Be a little like gathering area out front, and then the road will kind of loop around to this bridge. That. There's probably a main entrance is over here. The nice thing about drawing Japanese maps is that if there's some empty space where we just need a little something, then we can just plop a little roadside shrine in. Since you can pretty much put those anywhere, there's no real rules as to where they're appropriate. And vending machines too. Depending on the time period, just plop a vending machine down. It'll fit in. I wasn't very intelligent with this one. Perspective's getting a little funky. Like these buildings back here are side on, so this one here should be more side on. This one's kind of okay since like the camera is kind of above it on the same level as these ones, but it does mean this one should be more side on. Yeah, that looks better to me. This one's probably also quite side on, so let's put one of these little archways in the front here. Maybe like a little wooden platform out over here. Yeah, that'll be nice. Brush is a bit too ungainly, so okay, so this here is our big old guest house inn kind of deal. That's why it's so big. It's going to be the largest building besides the actual monastery structure, I suppose. Now, what else? What else, everyone? What are we missing on this map? I think this little shrine, since it's got the right perspective, we're going to sneak it up here instead. And over here, I mean, we can just make it plunge away into cliff. I think that's the easiest way, because we don't want more. We don't want to go overboard with houses and stuff. Although, like, a couple more wouldn't hurt. I mean, I can kind of see an opportunity here for a roof. then we need behind this to be another cliff. Because we don't want there to be the suggestion that there's more buildings to this place that we can't see. Garden? That's a good idea, Blue Colossal. Yeah. We definitely have hints of a garden behind this, which is a good excuse for why there's no buildings on the other side of the mountain. Because we don't want there to be buildings there, because it'll be in kind of the unmapped section. So I think where these trees are originating from, there'll be a big garden back there, but we can definitely sneak in another garden down here. Just a little, like a little rock garden, probably. Maybe that's what's here. Maybe this here will be a small little tea house. Kind of, so we need it to be more square and more small, if that's the case. Okay, so we're going to put a tea house next to the inn, kind of property of the inn, but reserved for only the highest paying of the guests. And then between the inn and the tea house, as is custom, there's like a nice little garden, mostly rocks since we're on the side of a mountain, and because I want to keep our trio of trees over here, but maybe rocks and like hedges, shrubs, kind of thing. The level of detail is probably just going to be like a little hint of rocks like this. Maybe some stuff back here, little shrubs. Although, like a Japanese style garden is probably doesn't resemble randomly growing bushes, mountainside bushes. So we'll see what we feel about the bushes later. Also, we haven't really got any foliage on this mountain besides our trees, have we? John, can I have some tea too? Sorry? Ocha? Vomitão. Obrigaimasu. Thank you. This face has a nice silhouette. I think that'll be the biggest clue that there's faces hidden the cliffside, because it'll be a distinct silhouette, kind of resembling a nose and stuff. Maybe we could have one tree like here. If there's going to be just one place with foliage, it'll be here. Kind of have another little garden, or maybe a statue or something in this space here. Like, we need something in here, and it might be one of those places where we sneak a little roadside shrine in, especially since, economically speaking, you'd want a little donation box right outside the inn, because a lot of visitors won't climb any higher than right here, so you'd want something right here at the entrance to collect money, right? Now that I think about it, like, more gardens is a good idea, because originally we wanted these monks to be kind of self-sufficient, but right now there's no indication that they can grow their own food besides the nebulous kind of garden area behind the mountain. Maybe that's where it all happens. Doing my best to sneak a shrine in. I guess that fits rather well. This bridge feels a bit odd, just the shape of it. But when we're blocking in colors, we can fuss more over those shapes. Also, this roof isn't very shrine-like, is it? It's more square. Yeah, and a little step there. So you have to go past it to visit the inn, and you have to go past it to climb higher up the mountain. So good little location.
Here we go. Any sugar milk? Any sugar milk?
No, that's okay. Thank you. Okay, so I quite like the layout of this place now. Like, I feel like the composition is good. See, we can pretty well simulate a brush pen just by doing these line styles where we draw something very thick and then we erase at the edges. And then we get this flowing brush pen look. Should we need to. Like our reference image, it's rather sparingly used just for edges, like here. Edges in very dark zones. So we'll see. But I think we want to hide the base of our buildings and just have them meet the stone like so. It makes them look a lot more grounded, like literally grounded. These ones are on stilts, so they won't be. And just have like a little step outside, I guess. There's a little step leading up. Perhaps not. Yeah, but we're getting pretty well into detail now. And also this whole little path up here, it's rather interesting. It looks carved very deliberately, which is, you know, I think the issue is this rock face should be falling in this kind of direction, which will help us hide that nose shape as well. Then we can just kind of sneak the hint of an eye in there. Okay, any final thoughts, everyone? Because we're pretty much done here for our planning stage. Any last little details you'd like to see on this map? We don't want anything hugely iconic, since we have all of our main iconic elements in already. We've got our faces, those are very large scale, and we've got our pink kind of color motif elements up here. Maybe we can sneak in 2 more trees, but we can make that decision later. That doesn't have to happen now. We've got 3 bridges. Those will probably be colored. This might be a bright red. We'll see. Maybe we can sneak in some more foliage. Just have bushy stuff in the garden. Maybe outside here. Like here. We can even like hint at an eyebrow for this guy. Though I feel like people would cut that away so it wouldn't be in the way of the spectacular view. This forehead probably needs to be better defined. Like the shape of the forehead would probably cut away at this shape. Like maybe this whole area just drops away into the forehead, like so. It's kind of a rounded, so that everyone who comes here and visits the inn is just stomping on this guy's scalp. Maybe that's why he looks so kind of restlessly sleeping. Just sneak in one of those little things up here. But I really am quite pleased with this. We made a couple of key decisions along the way, such as twisting this whole orientation to be a portrait. That was a good decision, I think. The faces were a nice touch. Let me make sure I get the right person to credit for that one. Well, Montmosen suggested our sakura trees. Those are going to be glorious when they're in full color. Thanks for that one. It was Garimo, of course, for the faces. First person to speak up in this chat too. So big thanks for participating, Garimo. Probably still mispronouncing your name. Sorry about that. Yeah, so have we got enough stuff? Because we could like sneak in a graveyard. If we had more floor space, we could do more, perhaps. But I think I'm just like playing around too much now. I'm not making any meaningful progress, so which means it's time to wrap things up and move on to the next step, which I'm not going to tackle today. This is it for today because I got some other work to do today. I'm going to release the second part of the ocean encounter list that my brother's been working on. So you'll be able to find that on the website in a couple of hours. But we'll pick up with this map again on Friday Australian time, so which is probably Thursday night for you Americans. No, actually, Thursday. I'm pretty sure I'm doing something Thursday, but anyway, in a few days we'll pick this map up and color it in, which is going to be good fun. We're going to tackle for the first time, try and replicate this old brush style that will evoke such a Japanese kind of feel. Going to be good fun. I really want to get started right now, but I've got other things to do, so I'm going to control myself. But yeah, this composition has gone well. Thanks everyone for the cool ideas. I think the best elements of this map came from you guys. The trees and the faces are going to be very iconic. Might play a little bit with the like, it's kind of cool if it's off to the side like this, right? That's a really nice design overall if it's not so centered. So maybe we'll try shifting it over here. It also gives this face a bit more space. And then we can move these. Like this little name tag can stand here. This one up here. This one's pretty fine where it is. Just kind of floating above their respective temples. And you know, I want another name tag for our inn. Maybe we can put that right here. Maybe this is like a general store or something. No, I think we'll reserve the name tags for our temples and for the settlement title, which is this one. And then I've shifted the whole thing to the left a bit, which gives us a really cool composition, in my humble opinion. Maybe we'll suggest a little mountainside over on this side, just to balance it out. We'll think about that later when we've got more information to go with. And then we can also lengthen this little ribbon of sakura petals drifting off in the wind. Yeah, this will be a lot of fun to paint. So for the 6 viewers still around, and for future viewers who are watching at a future date, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all your ideas and input. Please do hit that follow button if you enjoyed yourself here and want to tune in again next time. And just about at the exact 2-hour mark, I'm going to say goodbye. See you next time. I'll be back in a few days to paint this thing. I'm looking forward to it. So, off to a good start. Thanks everyone, and see you later.